My name is Michael Strumsky, and this is my podcast, People More Interesting Than Me. Each episode, I'll interview a person with a different background to try to understand what circumstances, family, or tragedy has made them into the individual they are today. Enjoy. Today, we've got Jonas Tizabi, longtime friend and Montgomery County product, another one. I would say we've known each other probably since maybe 11th or 12th grade, maybe after high school. I think that's
Yeah,
what
I think
I'm up.
I think we got to know each other better after high school, but I think I would venture to say junior year at least, right?
Yeah, I think
Do you remember when we first met? I don't remember when we first met.
I
Let's have
don't either. It's the funny thing is like it's kind of like you, Azam, and Sid. It kind of just like I don't know. It was just like that introduction of care. It was kind of like in The Office, the third or fourth season or whatever, when that whole branch comes to the office and they try to incorporate three brand new people.
Yeah.
Maybe I was the people who they incorporate. You know what I mean? Like you guys were the main characters, and I was just coming in like third or fourth season or something.
Or vice versa. It's all about perspective, right?
That's true. That's true. Okay, start me off with, I guess, did you always live in Montgomery County?
Yeah, I've lived in Montgomery County my entire life. So I think I've spent probably a total of 2.5 years outside. Well, I mean, I have College Park, which technically is not Montgomery County, all those a stone's throw. But yeah, I think the vast majority of my life has been in Montgomery County, Maryland. I've traveled for long periods of time outside of Montgomery County, and then I'm currently living in Boston, but back and forth a bit. So yeah, almost I'd say 90% at least.
Okay. And what was kind of like, I guess, your upbringing with your parents? Because you're a middle child. You've got an older brother and you've got a younger sister, right?
Uh,
And did you have a normal upbringing with your parents? And Montgomery County, it's just like a couple of the other people, Osm and Bernard. It's a mixed diversity. We've got tons of different religions, races, different households. Like you've got big families, small families.
yeah, I think there was one time in high school where I was refereeing a soccer tournament somewhere in the boonies in Montgomery County, and there was this. They had us at a hotel, and there was this Montgomery County book on the table, and I thought Montgomery County is like a world in its own. I mean, if they were like a disaster, and we were like in the not the Walking Dead, but like the only area with running electricity and water and so forth, I think could be self-sufficient because you have the urban area, you have the boonies, you have the suburbs, and there's a lot to do. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I guess I didn't really appreciate the diversity in Montgomery County, and the didn't appreciate the resources that we had, in the sense that I wasn't aware that it's not like this everywhere. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then when you start to leave, you start reflecting and seeing the differences, and then you come to realize how fortunate we are, I think, to be from such a great place. So I mean, from an upbringing perspective, yeah, I think being from Montgomery County itself, offers a few things, but then also being from a multi-ethnic background, that's another perspective as well. So I'm happy to elaborate on either one. I don't know if there's one way.
Yeah. Kind of tell me about from previous talks. Your parents are they're from different diverse backgrounds.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, my father is a Persian Jew. So he's from Iran, and almost all of his family lives in Israel now. And then my mother, her father is American, Polish, Italian American. He was born in the United States. And then my grandmother, my mother's side, is from Brazil. So yeah, I mean, different cultures. It's a mix. My mother was already a mix, and then I guess I'm an even bigger mix, right? My brother and sister and I, and so that makes for I guess an interesting upbringing, in the sense that there's not sort of one culture that I felt like I'm definitely that specific culture, right? Like I don't always identify so much with like the Persian crew, for example. I mean, I do, but then I can't speak Farsi, anymore, unfortunately. Or, the Brazilian crew, because I didn't speak Portuguese growing up, but, I had these similarities and I knew a few words and so forth. So, from a personal perspective, I think it presents the ability to connect with a wide range of people. And you can view it, one of two ways. I mean, you can view it like you don't have a home, or you could view it like you have a home everywhere, right? And I definitely have chosen the latter. I think, for my entire life, pretty much. But from a upbringing perspective, I can't really comment because it's all I know, but it's definitely great to have a mix of cultures when you're growing up. We celebrate different holidays. On my birthday and on everybody's birthday, we sing in 3 or 4 languages, which is really nice. So that's, I think, something special that I've grown to appreciate a lot more.
Yeah, and I this is not a good comparison, but I feel like when I walk into a party, I have so many different things that I'm involved in that I can kind of, obviously just with men. With women, it's kind of a little bit different, but like with your background, you could probably talk about anything, especially with your travel. I mean, start a conversation, elaborate on stuff. What I'm saying is, with your diverse background, you've got so much that you can kind of fit in, just like you were saying, with Persian people, with Jewish people. You kind of have your foot in multiple camps.
Yeah, that's really nice. But it's actually funny. I have a quick story about the not inability, but how it's been a challenge sometimes to even connect with people from the same part of the world, from Montgomery County, to keep that thing going. I was at work one day, and DC, the DC area is a very transient area, right? Most of the people I work with are from around the country, and very few from the DMV. And so I'm working, and one day, we're at a happy hour, and there's this another guy on the team, and he's my age, and I realized he's my age once I start talking to him. And then I asked him where he's from. He says Montgomery County. I said, "Oh wow, what high school did you go to?" He said he went to, I think it was Whitman. And then he asked me, "What high school did you go to?" I say Paintbrush. He said, "Never heard of that one." And then we had there was, I guess, the connection. Not that it stopped, but he didn't venture outside much of Bethesda and Potomac, I think. In fact, his words were, "Why would I leave?" But it was like, this inability, not inability, but so much in common, but like that disconnect at the same time, which is
That's
funny.
So surprising to me, because he must not have played like any sports.
Yeah, that's what everybody always says. Yeah, he didn't play any high school sports. So, you don't know the other schools if you don't play sports. So it's understandable.
But still, that's kind of far. That's like someone being so like out of it during their high school career that I mean, like, everyone's heard of at least a high school once in their 4-year career.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
That's crazy. So with your diverse background, you took on soccer, which is obviously a world sport.
Yeah.
And I know you probably don't care about U.S. men's soccer. Who's your team?
No, yeah, I do. I do actually. I mean, it's funny because growing up, I sort of didn't feel like, typical American, I guess, because, the different languages at home and just the different background, having cousins in other places. And, I just had a bit of a disconnect from those who were like your typical American, I guess. Right. But over the course of my life, right? I mean, I've lived in Montgomery County my entire life, so I'm an American, right? And there's no doubt about it. And so as I started to grow older, despite the fact that, the U.S. soccer doesn't exactly always give you a lot to be proud of on an international stage, I definitely root for the team, and I want to see them do well. So I'm super happy that we qualified for the World Cup, and we'll see how we do. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I always liked Brazil, right? Always liked Brazil because they were like the powerhouse. It's like,
it's like
the Lakers. You know what I mean?
The Duke, Patriots, Lakers. Yeah, everybody likes the consistent people.
Yeah, so I always had, I would always be able to rep Brazil, and then sort of turn my shoulder when the U.S. was not pulling their weight, I guess. But so they're definitely my squad. But I've actually I've been lucky to go to 2 World Cups, and both times I saw Iran play, which was really cool too.
Awesome.
I will say, I will say the first time was actually World Cup in Brazil. It was the first time that I went to Brazil, and it was a great experience. Um, and we saw Iran play Nigeria, and I think that was voted the worst game of the World Cup. But it was still a great experience nonetheless.
Yeah. And I mean, like, how has soccer, I guess, did it help with you growing up at all? Like, did you kind of use that as, I guess, a way to make friends, expand, like, past, let's say, because I know you have a couple of organizations you're working on now, that you've kind of, I guess you would say, give back to the community, at least Montgomery County?
Yeah, I think so. Growing up, soccer was sort of like a a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, right? Like I was a little different, and soccer is popular around the world, and so having the Brazilian background, I always thought that I should be good at this, right? And so, not saying that I was good at it, but I like to play a lot for sure. And that was a great way to meet people, to connect with people, and to expand my horizons too. I mean, I started learning Spanish when I was in school, and I got to practice because I had a team, and then anywhere that I've gone, it's really like a universal language. I mean, you don't need to speak the same language as somebody, but you kick a ball around, you all smile, you have a good time, and then you have somebody to say hi to, when you see them in the street, right? So it really is a great way to make friends and to make connections, and it's a good activity. Stay healthy, stay in shape, and so I think that's one of the avenues that I've realized I can use to give back to the community, because I love soccer so much. I can host an event, or use it for fundraising purposes, or what I'm trying to do now is to encourage the local government in Montgomery County to develop soccer courts so that people can play at night, because we often play on tennis courts, right? But there's no real purpose-built space for soccer, and I think that if that existed, that there would be a lot more people coming out, a lot more people having fun, and I think that they would allow for the development of the sport too, and would contribute to the success of the United States on the global stage too, ultimately. But most importantly, would give kids a place to play. So hopefully, we'll see more of those coming.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, well, I wouldn't say it's that big. It's more like my personal opinion, but with, I don't know, with all this CTE talk and football, and I mean, you can get CTE from soccer, but it's nothing compared to football, American football. And I just think I've always thought in the next like 5 or 10 years, US soccer is just going to continue to get much bigger just for that fact. Because I mean, look at baseball. I mean, basketball's in a good spot. Baseball, a little mundane. Football, a little too dangerous. I think soccer is just the right spot for the US in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, with it's the most popular sport at the youth level. I think that when kids start to get older, they start choosing other sports. But with a few things, changing demographics, people coming from places where soccer is more of a dominant sport, that I think helps a lot for the development of the game. And then also, since there is so much room to grow in the U.S. market for soccer and for soccer expertise, I think having the coaches come in from abroad as well helps with some of the style. Because I think, my personal opinion is that the style of U.S. soccer is to blame for our lack of success. So once we start to adopt a style that focuses more on technique and skill versus pure athleticism, I think that we'll see some better results. But yeah, I think all those things are going to help contribute to the success of the United States on a national level, and we're already seeing that where there's a lot more players playing in the top leagues nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. So let me circle back to you. So
Sure.
I don't usually bring this up until the end, but it kind of goes to your personality. So the Enneagram test I got, you got a type 3. So type 3,
Yeah.
Did you read anything about it before?
Not really, but what I did notice, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Oh, you're
I
fine.
did notice that a lot of the slices of the pie were almost the exact same size, which frequently happens with me. I don't know if that's anything to note, but I didn't, the 3 didn't even look like it was the biggest one at first, but obviously if they say it is, it must be.
Well, it says 3s are self-assured, attractive, and charming. And for people who don't know Jonas Tizabi, he is a very good looking man. But the other stuff it says on it is that you're very ambitious, like, and don't feel like this isn't supposed to be conceited or anything, but you want people to see your success. You want people to see like what you do, like all these accomplishments that you have. Like just looking at your resume, it's amazing. My resume looks like a peanut butter sandwich. Yours looks like, I don't know, a sandwich you would find at I was gonna say Subway, because Subway doesn't have really good sandwiches, but some local, like, where they lay the meat on heavy, the cheese, the lettuce, and the tomato. You've got a good resume. Like, you're a well-traveled man.
Gourmet.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you are currently in Boston getting you're in law school. You've already got
I'm in Masters of Economics. Hopefully law school next.
I mean, based on your type 3 methodology, like when I was looking at the people who are associated with type 3, they're all the people you would kind of associate, like who we got: Oprah Winfrey, Augustus Caesar, not that anybody knows him, Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, all the big people who are like just people who get stuff done. You know what I mean? Like, and you're kind of driven. Would you say you're driven by, I guess, not the image of you, but making yourself better when you self-reflect, kind of?
Yes. So first, I don't know if Lance Armstrong and Tiger are the ones I'm looking to emulate. But
while you're talking,
I don't know. I think, huh?
I'll pick up some good ones while you keep talking. There's a long list.
Yeah, no, Oprah's a powerhouse, but I don't think I'm quite in that category yet. But yeah, no, I saw this, and I think that historically, I haven't really viewed myself as the most ambitious person. I mean, I sort of, I think I've become maybe, and I'm not the competitive ambitious are the same at all, but I think that in order to succeed in an endeavor, oftentimes, a competitive edge helps. And I think that I've become maybe more competitive as I've gotten older. But this type 3 thing was a surprise when I saw the result. It definitely makes sense given my current goals and what I've been experiencing over the past few years. But I think that that's maybe been an evolution of my personality, in the sense that, growing up, I was just all about having a great time, having fun with my friends, being nice, but not really so focused on getting the best grades, you know what I mean? Or even being on the best team necessarily, you know what I mean? So I think all of that is a bit new. And I think maybe it stems from, maybe I feel like I'm getting older, or, wanting to accomplish something professionally and feeling like maybe I'm not doing that in my current role, or, these are all things from the recent past because I'm not working right now, right? But I think that plays a big part into that type 3 label, or that type 3 result. So I definitely do feel like I do want to accomplish things, and I do want to do well, and I think that has been important to me. But I've realized that it also results in me putting a lot of pressure on myself, which is not really constructive. Largely not constructive, I think. And coming back to school, definitely in the first semester, I found myself doing that a lot. And now I've started to, relax a little bit more and just try to enjoy things and try to emulate my younger self with a little bit more discipline, maybe.
Yeah, because like they talk about this to kind of too much detail, but like, for example, they talk about these types when they're in healthy and unhealthy levels. Like, for example, they're talking about fearing of failure, humiliation, basically becoming vindictive, attempting to ruin others. By the way, good ones: Reese Witherspoon. Who was the other one I found? Muhammad Ali. There you go. Those are 2 good ones.
Nice.
You're a Sweet Home Alabama fan, right?
Yeah, no, but being vindictive or trying to harm others, I would never. I hope it would never get to that level.
You never got to that level. That's like extreme cases.
Yeah, definitely have the philosophy that a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah.
I think there's enough room for us all to succeed. So
Yeah. This one in the healthy levels, you're self-assured, energetic, competent, ambitious to improve themselves to be the best they can be. So that's what I kind of see from you. I mean, you're in Boston. You're away from your fiance. I get it.
we got the rest of our lives. We'll be all right.
But yeah, stemming from that, do you think you never felt pressure from, I mean, being a middle child, you don't you never felt pressure from your older brother or uh I guess attention away because of your little
You
sister or
know what?
anything like
Maybe
that
like I
that
don't know
kind of
because
driven
you
you
said confident, right? That was
to succeed, I guess?
one of the type 3 qualities. Think I think that's something I struggled with a lot growing up, in terms of sports, especially I would say. But the reason I mentioned that is because when I think about excelling as a kid, right? The two areas that come to mind are school and sports, right? For me, at least. And
Mhm.
my brother was always a way better soccer player than I was and just more athletic. And then my sister was like a shining star when it comes to academics. So, even though she was younger, she was always straight A's. So I wasn't necessarily trying to compete with either one of them. Not that I thought I could anyway, but I tried to just do my best, or at least do enough. Maybe it wasn't even my best. Like I say, I wasn't super ambitious growing up. I wasn't always trying to get straight A's. I was trying to get more A's than B's, or I was trying to just have fun when I played soccer. I wasn't trying to, to dominate or, to
Mhm.
win. I was all about just having fun. And I think maybe that's why I was I still am, I think, a social person. But I think that's really what dominated my life growing up was, just trying to make friends, trying to get along with people, and and to have a good time. But yeah, I mean, I think that when I mentioned the confidence thing, I think that as I started to mature a little bit, I realized, hey, if anybody can do it if they put their mind to it, right? And so I started trying to step up a little bit more in sports, to try to be a little bit more competitive, to maybe show that it's that I can compete, or that I can do it. And then same with academics. Like now I'm trying my hardest to I guess prove to myself that it can be done, right? Um, but yeah, I'll leave it at that.
And just to touch back on your travel, how many countries did you say you've been to?
I wrote it down, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I really don't. But it's somewhere over 50.
Okay. Oh, you don't need to give me exact. I'm just trying to establish how well traveled you are. But what would you say the drive? Like, I mean, obviously it's a big endeavor to just go outside the country for some people, but you were literally like, you've been to all the countries. Obviously now you probably wouldn't go, but like you've been to Russia, you've been to Ukraine, you've been to all those ones that people don't usually visit just because they're not as razzle dazzle. You know what I mean? Like they usually go to Italy, they go to France, they go to, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. I think the motivation is part just exploration, pure exploration, right? Like I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid because how many people get to go to space, And so I sort of view
Yeah.
this traveling the same way, right? I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity, and it's also sort of not a norm, but my dad traveled, my mother was moved around a lot as a child, and so having this international background and this exposure from an early age just made me want to see these things that I felt like other people had seen too, and to really just broaden my horizons, And so it's always something that I enjoy, to meet people from different backgrounds and to enjoy what we have in common. And that's definitely part of the motivation. And then I think that, I get a lot of joy and utility from that, which is great. And then maybe part of it is compulsion too, just wanting to see everything, But I think that definitely the former, at least, is my active motivation rather than maybe some sort of subconscious desires. But yeah, I mean, going to your point, I don't try to just target one, region of the world. I really do have broad interests. So I think that just getting that exposure is great. And you have your traditional tourist destinations, but there's a wide world out there beyond that. And so I thought it would be great to to be able to see what that's like. And since we have such a diverse population here in the DMV area, there's always somebody you're going to be able to connect with, regardless of what part of the world you end up in. So I've definitely tried to make use of the different chances I have to go to places that might be, quote, off the beaten path, I guess.
Okay, I got a crazy question for you. So of all the times that I traveled, like for example, one time I was in Peru about to do the what's it called? The Machu Picchu trail or whatever. And literally we walked up on a group, a family that was basically only like 2 miles away from us at home. What's the craziest story you have about you ran into someone
Oh
in a different
man,
country and
I
they,
got a lot, but I think that the
what's the craziest?
craziest one is probably actually in Russia, I would say. Well, I have seen friends of mine like at the airport. You know what I mean? Like I ran into a friend who I played soccer with
Yeah.
in elementary school, um, Bradley, at the airport in France, which was wild. But I think the craziest thing is when we were in Russia. We were in St. Petersburg, and Brazil had just played a soccer match, and we were walking around, and my dad has a, he's he's a professor, and so he meets a lot of people from around the world, these conferences. He likes to connect people as well, right? And so he had a colleague in Russia who was showing us around. She put us in contact with some students from her lab. They're great. They were taking us out, and we went to this pub in St. Petersburg. It's like outdoor. It was a really nice area. Anyways, I go to the bar to get us some drinks, and I see some people with some Brazil jerseys. So I say, let me practice my Portuguese, right? So I start talking to somebody, and then he says he's actually from the United States. I say, where? He says, Boston, but now I'm in DC. I say, okay, great. Where? He says, Wheaton. Oh, wow, I'm from Silver Spring. He said, oh yeah, where about? I said, well, I live off of Fairland Road. He says, oh, this guy's your neighbor. And then he points to somebody, and I start talking to him, and he says he lives off of Mimosa Lane, off Tamarack. I think he said off Tamarack. And I said, oh my, and I was with Lisa at the time too. And Lisa had at the time this Brazilian neighbor who lived across the street from her who would throw bangers, right? And I said, you're the guy who throws the legendary parties. He was like, no, that's not me, but that's my friend. I live right down the street from him. So, we had this great night. And I remember this guy because he had this bottle called the Kremlin's vodka. He was, hey, you want some Kremlin's vodka? So I come back after the travels like a year later. I'm at the gym, this Gold's on Tech Road, well, Fitness Evolution on Tech Road. And then I see this guy, and I'm talking with somebody, and I said, excuse me, I gotta go. I think this is somebody I know. So I go up to this guy, and I'm like, no, that's not him. I say, yeah, it's him. I say, yo, man, are you Brazilian? He's like, no. And then I walk away. I'm like, oh, okay. He says, but I speak Portuguese. I'm like, oh yeah, he wasn't Brazilian, but he speaks Portuguese. So I say, yo, do you remember me, man? We met in Russia in 2018. You were drinking Kremlin's vodka, yada yada yada. And then he was like, oh man, no, I don't remember. And then I scrolled through my phone and I showed him a picture that we took together. And he's like, oh, that was an epic night. And so it was a really funny series of events. But I think
That is funny.
that's probably the craziest story. When you think about it, it's not so crazy that I would run into him if he's from the area, back home. But it is wild. We would run into each other, at some random bar in St. Petersburg. So
That is pretty crazy.
yeah, that's probably the craziest one.
When you do the math, it's probably not that crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just think like certain bars people travel to, it's popular to travel here in the DC, probably shows up into the Facebook targeted ads.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I think that there's the probability of you running into somebody that
and a lot of people though. You know what I mean?
I think it goes. Yeah, I think it increases. So I mean, yeah, I wanted to start a blog at one point when I was traveling, and then I think I wrote down like all the crazy times that I've seen somebody in like a different part of the world, or these types of coincidences, and there was a lot of them. There were a lot of them.
What was your title going to be? Was it catchy?
I don't think I
Jonas's
even got
Travels.
the title. That's,
It's always got to be witty.
yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'll have to work on that though.
Okay, let's start to wrap it up. What's my two favorite questions? We already hit the Enneagram. How do you think your environment has helped shape you to be the person you are today?
Yeah, I think that definitely big time influenced by my environment and where I'm raised and where I come from. And I realize that more and more as I start to step out of that environment. But I think that from everything from language to my personality, I think that a lot of that is you know shaped by being in one place for so long, but one place. So I think that definitely plays a big part in who I am. Yeah, I think that's really. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And do you think, like any big external things have shaped that? Obviously, the normal stuff, your parents, your brother, your sister, your school, but like, has there, I guess, any big experiences shaped your life or shaped your views
Yeah,
of the
I think
future?
that there's one that I can think of on a practical level. An example where that shaped part of I guess, my identity to a certain extent, since I think that language and culture is a big part of your identity. So I used to speak Farsi growing up, right, and with my father, and I think I understood Portuguese. I don't know how much I really spoke, but I definitely remember speaking Farsi, right? And I remember vividly going to school and getting confused because at home, my mother didn't speak Farsi, my grandfather, her father didn't speak Farsi, but they knew some of the foods, right? So we would call like cantaloupe, for example, it's called talabi. So we would call that talabi. And, I thought that it just had two different names. And so I remember once when I was in kindergarten, we went to this after school program, and a friend of mine, Jeremiah, I think Jeremiah Prophet, right? So yeah, we were
Yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
sitting down, and the teacher brings out cantaloupe, and I'm like, hey, talabi, talabi. And then he looks at me and he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's Talabi. Don't you know it has two names, right? And he's like, nah, you're wild, and it doesn't have two names. Like, all right, let's ask the teacher. So we asked the teacher, and the teacher comes back, and she's like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. This is called cantaloupe. And so I was so embarrassed. And I remember running home and telling my dad I didn't want to speak anymore. And I think that things like that had been happening a lot, but I vividly remember that. And
Yeah.
and I think it was, it's the same with watermelon. I think I even told Jeremiah it's the same with watermelon. Don't you know Hendune? Never heard of that before. So anyways, I stopped, basically told him I wanted to stop speaking, and he was like, you're gonna regret it. But I was a little kid, and I do regret it very much so, but I didn't know that at the time. So I think that's an example of maybe environment shaping major life decisions, perhaps. Even though it was my decision,
Mhm.
little kid, hopefully don't hold myself accountable for that
Yeah.
one.
I mean, but yeah, obviously you remember it. And like, in my opinion, I think those small events just snowball if you don't hit them head on, if that makes sense. Like you're just gonna keep on getting hit by that
Yeah,
one little story.
but I
But
think that you learn from those, and I definitely, those instances where I might have felt embarrassed, I definitely, as I got older, learned to deal with those in a more constructive way. For example, I remember one time I had fried chicken. Right? I was eating fried chicken from the farmer's market at lunch, right? And kids will make fun of you for anything. So remember, I had this fried chicken. I was like, somebody's gonna ask me where I got this. I already know, right? Somebody asked me where I got the fried chicken. I said I got it at the Amish market. And they started laughing at me like the Amish market was like something they had never heard of. And that's when I just realized you could, And so that was definitely a learning experience where instead of stopping to eat fried chicken, I I just realized that I had to live my own life.
no, that's funny. Okay, last question. And I know you want to be delicate with this one. What is something that your parents did that you would like to pass on to your children? And what is something that you're trying to, I guess, do differently than them?
Yeah. I mean, I have to, my entire life, literally, of course, to my parents. But they've been so great, and there's so much that I would take from what they. I think that there's too much to list, right? Off the top of my head, you know, just creating an environment where I'm able to do what I want, but encouraging me to make the right decisions, to instill the proper values, and to really focus on education. Just the opportunities that they've given me, and the things that they've exposed me to. Not just living in Montgomery County, but traveling and appreciating different points of view, different people. They've been extremely supportive in everything in all aspects of my life. So I would like to try to be as supportive, or to give similar opportunities to my kids when I have them, and would definitely appreciate that. I think if I were to if there's anything that I would change, I don't know if there's anything I would change particularly, but what I would say is that I think part of coming from a multicultural background, you see how there's sometimes a culture clash. You know what I mean? Like, different people do different things differently, right? And when you're in a long-term relationship, as any two people will be if they're having kids, right? Generally, I think that you have to be able to communicate, to get along, and to solve problems. And there's different ways of doing that, right? And I think that can be very valuable, and it can also be a big challenge. And I think that, well, Lisa and myself, we're from different backgrounds, right? But I think that trying to anticipate some of those challenges is something that I can sort of have a head start on, having seen my parents go through everything, right? In terms of raising a kid, different styles. And so just anticipating that, I think, would make me hopefully a little bit more ready. And then, hopefully a better parent and more prepared to tackle parenthood.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got the experience from.
I don't have any experience. I could talk about it all day, but I have, I have no kids right now.
Oh no, not parenting, but your experience, I guess, with being raised by your parents, to kind of, not that, I guess, I don't know Lisa well enough, but you guys are from two different backgrounds, so it might be similar to your situation, being raised by your parents from two different diverse backgrounds. So you'll at least know how to kind of slowly work your kids.
Yeah,
that's a good response.
So. But at the same time, Lisa and I are also from both of us have lived our whole lives in the United States, in Montgomery County, in fact. So very similar in that sense, but maybe from a background perspective, definitely have that dichotomy.
Yeah, sadly I think people's culture gets watered down a little bit. Like, if you're obviously not in that country, it's hard to keep.
We could do a whole other episode on that.
But yes, thank you very much for helping me out, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's funny how much I learn about my friends. I don't know if you've heard, I've learned so much from Azam, Bernard, who I've known for so long, and then you talk to someone, and then it's like all those questions you never ask when you're going out to the bar drinking with them.
Yeah, no.
And you're like, hey,
100%.
Tell me about your family background.
Yeah, it's a good platform though, and it's a great way to get to know people on a more, a deeper and intimate level. So I think that's kudos to you for spearheading that.
And while I have you here, did you want to plug anything?
Not quite yet, but keep your eyes peeled for some soccer courts coming to Montgomery County, and keep your fingers on your keyboard ready to send out some emails when we need your advocacy and support.
If you like this week's episode of People More Interesting Than Me, please follow me on Apple Podcasts so you won't miss out on more episodes like these.